Welcome everyone who's here and online as well. And so the three of us will have an informal conversation about the interactions between Zen and the work of Byron Katie, which is what we've been doing for the last 4 days here. And this is meant to be a very informal sharing moment. And let me say first a few words about what we've been doing.
Could you introduce yourself too?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Eduardo Zambrano, and I live in San Luis Obispo, California, and today I live here. And I am an economics professor at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and I also have a Zen practice and also an inquiry practice. I practice something called the work of Byron Katie alongside my Zen practice. And this is my 7th time here at the Great Vow or Heart of Wisdom, and sharing this blend of inquiry that comes from Zen and the work. Thank you. And I want to say something for a couple of minutes and then really break it very quickly into conversation between Jomon, Bansho, myself, and all of you. And I want to start by these chants we chant in the morning. Sometimes, and for the longest time for me when I was beginning to practice and decades into it, the chants felt very distant, like some people out there, with razor sharp wisdom wrote them and very inaccessible. To the point that I would see Jedi Masters on the movies and they felt more accessible, even though they're not real. And so it's like, how can this wisdom be real, accessible to me, without me having to take it on faith? And inquiry into the thoughts we have at any given moment, what in Zen is called ordinary mind, allows us to tap into the wisdom that is always pouring out through us. And then some people get to collect them in books that then we read. But the wisdom really comes from us. And I'll give you a mini example. So when we were in Zazen, I noticed I'm sitting and I'm following the directions, sit, and then mind starts going, well, you're going to be doing this Dharma talk thing, and so you can say this and you can say that. And it was like racing, And I was like, what's that about? And a thought popped into me that I need to know what to say. You see? So it's like, there I am, and about an hour ago, and I have the thought I need to know what to say. And so that's my concept. And in the next in a couple of minutes, I would like to show you how one would work with this concept and see what one learns. So would you be willing to be my facilitator? So Jomon has a set of 4 questions here that she can ask me as they're written on the sheet. And my concept is, I need to know what to say. And I'm going to anchor myself in the moment. About an hour ago, I'm in my seat, and I need to know what to say. Thinking when it comes my turn to say something like now, right? So I need to know what to say.
Is that true?
No.
Then we can go to the next question.
So then we go to the next question. There's 4 questions, and so we're going to read them in order, yes.
Can you absolutely know that it's true?
And I'm going to anchor myself there. I'm not remembering how I was then, but I'm there now. And I absolutely know that it's true, that in an hour, I need to know what to say in an hour. No.
How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought?
When I believe the thought, I need to know what to say. And if you've ever been in that position, I invite you to track and travel with me. When I believe the thought, I need to know what to say. I see images of people looking at me, expecting something from me, and I kind of freeze. And it feels like deer in the headlights. And the anxiety rises, and the anxiety feels like a knot in my throat. And I start resenting that I say yes to this Dharma talk business. It's like, what was I thinking? I could just be, kind of idle, and instead, so I can't even enjoy being there sitting, and it's someone's fault, the ones that invited me, or the ones that said yes, and that would be me. So resentment arises, and that feels like guilt, like, wow, and a bit of shame, and I'm feeling it, like I'm there now. This is the effect of believing the thought. I need to know what to say.
Who or what would you be without the thought?
So I'm sitting in my cushion. Without the thought, I need to know what to say. I notice my exhale, actually. And that brings me to the awareness that when I believe my thought, I need to know what to say, I become kind of incorporeal, like I don't notice my breathing, I don't notice my bodily sensations. I'm gone in this mental world of futuring. So without that thought, it's vastly simpler. I just become a sitter, just sitting. A person with no future. That's lovely. So then we go into a process called turning the thought around, which is looking for opposites, and I'm going to look just for one.
Can you turn the thought around to the opposite?
So I need to know what to say. What's the opposite? I don't need to know what to say. And I'm going to look for a genuine example. So I'm there now. Well, the talk is in an hour. So no, I don't need to know what to say right now. So that's an example. I don't need to know what to say. Even if I planned it all the way until then, I might just say something differently, and I might even be better. And I can find I don't need to know what to say, in that even if I didn't know it, it's not that my body is just going to melt like a candle and I'm going to disappear. Like, I'm okay not knowing right then and there. So I don't need to know what to say is truer. And I can rest in that experience, having reflected viscerally on my examples, that I don't need to know what to say. So that's how the work works, and there is wisdom there. Like, I could live out of I don't need to know what to say. If applying that wisdom for my wife would appreciate that. I could be a better listener, as I, my students at the university will appreciate that. My 3-year-old will appreciate that. There is so much wisdom. It's like I could write a book called I Don't Need to Know What to Say, and people might buy it. And more importantly is, I will buy it because it's wisdom that comes from me. Wisdom is always pouring out of us, and these books are gentle reminders to look within for that wisdom, which is what we do, day in and day out in Zen practice. And so I'm going to end here with a demonstration and see how Jomon and Bansho, I almost forgot your Dharma name. What was their experience doing this work in the monastery, given that they are the Zen teachers and I'm just the economist in the room? Thank you. And thank you for facilitating me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Eduardo, for this retreat.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And let me say, that was not a demonstration like rehearsed, like I did my work. That was my work now on a concept that happened a few moments ago. Yeah.
Eduardo is an exemplar of that, of really walking the talk. He did the work on a nightmare he had, and was inquiring into the people who were populating that dream, even just 4 a.m, waking up and doing that. So I really admire that commitment to the work. And my experience of the weekend, and hopefully we'll get a lot of sharing in here today, is that it really, Hogan Roshi was someone who kind of discovered this as something that really is quite compatible with our Zen practice. And this tender observation and wide, really, acceptance of this very vibrant aspect of life that is thought. Bringing a method to examining these thoughts and doing so from a deep foundation of practice, of presence, of body awareness, is something that we're all doing here already. And this invites us into a process that we can share with each other. That was one of the things I really appreciated about having it in this workshop form, is that we were taught this process of co-facilitation and allowed to venture off and just in turn being the client or the facilitator. And what a gift that is to offer to each other our own attention and awareness, which I notice has a way of dissolving some of these habitual thoughts, dissolving some of these concepts. And so often what we're doing here in Zen is noticing the things that I thought were solid and had its own identity. We look closely and see that it's made up of parts and particles and doesn't really have its own weight, its own being. It's this continuous flow and ever-changing reality. But our concepts, our beliefs want to freeze our view, and then we start living as if that's reality. That seems to create some friction, also known as suffering, which is an indicator that I might be trying to force life into being something that it isn't. And then it's really just an invitation. Do I want to discover a little more about that, about how that might be happening? And this is a means of doing that. The other thing I think is important to say, as I remember it, is we were given a list of emotions words, front and back, full, very small print. A great many emotions words. And Eduardo said something about how this work is the opposite of spiritual bypassing, which sounds like, there's been some critique of this method as a means of spiritual bypassing. But indeed, in this experience, it does seem that emotions as well as thoughts are being given some space and spaciousness to be observed, to be inquired about and held in community. And in that way, they are allowed to transform. So that was a little bit of my experience.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I appreciated is working through we have this thing called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. You basically have a situation with someone and you say the emotion and you say because of something this person did. And I found the writing very helpful to just have the pen to paper. And one of the things that we were invited to do was to bring up a situation that wasn't so recent. Perhaps somebody who we had forgiven, but not 100%. And that was really interesting because I remembered a situation from my work life, maybe even 10 years ago. And I was able to really work through that. So one of them was, Arthur needs to stick up for me. And, going through those 4 questions, is it true? And what is the experience when I believe that thought, and living without that thought? And then the turnaround is, one of the turnarounds is, I need to stick up for me, which is, and then investigating whether that's true. And it's not necessarily, we're not trying to replace like, oh, I was wrong before and now here's the right answer. But it's simply an invitation. I liked what you said. It's like trying on shoes. Like, let's try this on and walk around a little bit. And in that case, it's like, that's true. Yeah, there's truth. It's as true, or truer. I need to stick up for me. And the empowering part of that is to just really go quiet and find, I can do that. And there's these things that I'm outwardly focused. This person, I need this person to do this for me, that I can provide for me. And so there's a way, it's like, oh, I can meet what I need in that moment, which is very powerful. It's both taking responsibility and also that the freedom there is like, I'm not relying on the world. I'm not relying on this person to read my mind. I'm not relying on this person to know what I need. I know that I need that, and I can provide that, and then I have options to step forward and see how I can do that in the world. So that's one example was very helpful in the turnarounds.
Thank you. And the one thing that comes for me to share there is not only we discover that we have all this inner wisdom, they were an internal source of wisdom, but also an internal source of compassion. And so that which we thought others should give to us, we can give to us. And that is, I like to call that drinking from the well that satisfies. Like if you wanted, think of someone in your life that you want them to admire you. And it can be your partner, it can be your teacher, it can be, and take a moment and find someone you can admire about them. And as you admire, notice how that feels good. It's like nourishment for free. It's available and we can drink from it. And it's kind of the foundation of the golden rule, do to others as you think they should do unto you. And here we get to realize the wisdom and actualize it now. And it feels so personal because it's about the person that, a specific person, the concrete person that you saw should do it for you. So it's not an abstraction, this realization. It's a lived embodiment of compassion. And so let's open it up, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so any questions, comments, either from participants in the retreat or from anyone else, yes?
And we have a mic that can run around.
Earlier you said something to the effect of concepts, judgments come from God or awareness, emptiness. Mm-hmm. So the work is work, like it's work, right? And so I'm sitting, so it was interesting to come back and forth to like do the work and then sit in the Zendo. And I can see benefit to doing the work on my cushion, but also sometimes I just want to sit and breathe because I need that. But then, so then the thought arises, and it's like, okay, well, if it came from God or if it's talking to me, how do I know when to pick it up and when to just be like, shh? Is there a method to that?
It sounds to me like you just knew. So I would trust that.
So yesterday we discussed the practice of doing the work not on a worksheet. So the some thought arises, and then questioning, is it true?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could call that a continuous practice of the work. I was wondering from any of y'all what your thoughts or experiences and how that interplays or interweaves with somebody that is also practicing with a koan, and how those two come together.
Well, I think it just requires a little bit of intuition and creativity on your part of what's appropriate to meet the certain moment. It's not like a paint by numbers kind of thing. So sometimes something arises and we just work with it right then and there. Like a thought arises, Will thinks this is a dumb answer. And then I think, is that true? Can I absolutely know that's true? No. So let that go. So I think that so if there's other times, or we might our mind might be in a place where there's just kind of thoughts flowing through, right? Our concentration is has a certain flavor of there's thoughts arising, and we don't have to. There's no catch. That's one of the things that Byron Katie talks about is like the thoughts we don't have to work with every thought. I mean, we can, but it's the ones that grab us that have grab to them. So if you're in a state of, or you have an element of calm abiding, and thoughts are flowing through like clouds, you don't need to do that. But when there's grab, maybe you do, and then you get to discern. When's the appropriate time to do it? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. I thought I'd share, following on the comment about doing the work-like stuff on the fly during Zazen. I'm speaking as someone who, for various reasons that aren't really all that germane, was pretty rigorously skeptical coming into the workshop. And what I'm finding sitting on the cushion now is that when my life comes back, the life that I am ambivalent about going back to, as it always comes back at the end of a weekend or a week here, I have a little bit more faith, having re-examined a bunch of things, I have a little more faith that, whatever this wall of discomfort is, it's probably bullshit. It's just made of thoughts. And just saying, is it true? Having done that dozens of times this weekend, a space opens up where I can be present, and my Zen practice is thereby affirmed, and so there's sort of a confirmation that yes, this helped my Zen practice this weekend, which is to me tremendous.
Thank you.
Edward, you were talking about how the chants kind of seemed at a distance from you, and I don't know, now they don't because you have some deeper understanding. Do Sino chants still feel at a distance from you? And what comes up for you when you chant them?
Well, that is a great question. There's something mysterious about these chants, and you just give yourselves to them. And especially the Dharani, what's called, the one that we always chant? Yeah, like when you, yes, what he said. Like, when you encounter the Heart Sutra in Sino Japanese, like you kind of want to know what it means, and so you go and then translate it, and you're like, oh, there it is. And then when you got the Dharani, and then someone says, well, actually, it doesn't mean anything. It's just like paka 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 paka. But it's a very special kind of paka paka paka. They just didn't paka paka. So I trust that. Like I give myself to that, and it's like a little of this, a little of that. Just like at the count of 3. The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Up came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again.
What a great retreat. All of my gratitude to you and the Sangha. It feels like, I have a preface and then a question. So it feels like here in the presence of kindness and love and the Buddha's embrace and the Sangha's embrace, my heart is open to doing this work. I worry about leaving this container and going back to a complicated environment as the environment is. What tips or suggestions do you have on how to keep the heart open when returning back to mundane life outside of the Zendo?
Yeah, I would write a Jochu Neighbor worksheet on the complicated environment, and let that be the thing you're judging, and then just follow the simple directions.
There are also some kind of standard recommendations, and you can maybe take some of these. Everyone who was here, it's normal to feel the maybe contrast. One piece of advice that's been helpful to me post-retreat is to not try to hold on to some kind of mind state, but to just allow things to change as they do, and not try to impose all of it onto our life and say, shut up, I'm in a very important spiritual state of mind right now. Instead, we can really show up to the life that we have and take all of this open-hearted energy and be of use, to be open to connection with whoever it is that's been taking care of things for us while we've been gone. And also, this kind of experience is not very well communicated to others. It's one of those you kind of had to be there kind of things usually. And then we sang the Itsy Bitsy Spider, and it was so liberating. And I mean, it doesn't really land. So be a good listener and find out what the people who are in your life have been doing and what their life has been. Also, if things get a little bit uncomfortable, you can always just engage in some simple work, maybe in the house, clean something, or go outside and take a walk, be in touch with nature. Those are some really nice ways to just settle in that transition. And then you can always return to practice, either on Zoom and online. Do the work, do a worksheet, just keep your practice going and reach out. You can always get a hold of one of us or someone here through the registrar. Please reach out to Sangha, the Sangha that you're going back to. Those are all really important ways to take care of yourself, and that's an excellent question. So thank you.
And I want to add a couple of things. It's humbling to remind ourselves that it's the human race who we're going to encounter out there. And what a wonderful opportunity, you know. Yeah. Oh, and the one more thing is, if you out there you think someone should do the work, turn it around and you do the work. Or whatever it is that you think they should do, right? They should meditate, you know, they should be more mindful. Just turn it around, meditate, be more mindful, and be a listener. People loved good listeners, you know. Yeah.
So there was this question during the retreat, what is a belief? And I think it came from the Zen master, Jomon. I was like, oh wow. Even Zen masters don't really know what to believe, or like, you know, still question it. So I was like really ruminating on like, what is a belief? What is a belief? And this is what came to my mind. So there was this scene in the movie Shrek when the donkey asks Shrek, tell me something about augurs. And Shrek says, augurs have layers. And donkey, you mean they sting and make you cry? And Shrek is like, no, donkey, augurs have layers, onions have layers. And I realized, like, beliefs also have layers. And when we peel the onion, it might stink, it might make you cry. But what is the most interesting is actually like when you peel the last layer, there's no onion anymore. So I don't know, that like really resonated with me. Thank you.
Thank you. And you know, the key quality that Zen master displayed here was humility when she asked her question. Yeah.
Thank you. I really, really love talking. I like the scripture by Dogen that to follow the Buddha way, forget the self, to forget the self. Or no, to follow the Buddha way, know the self. To know the self, forget the self. To forget, when you've forgotten the self, then you're illuminated by myriad things. And it seems like the work by Byron Katie kind of follows that formula, because to follow the Buddha way is compassion. That's the heart of Buddhism. And then Byron Katie asks you to take something that you're upset about, to know thyself, not run away from it, but actually look at it and then shake it, play it like a Rubik's Cube, turn it around and let it fall apart and forget it. And then you become like, you feel better because things have broken loose and you're more mature and you're more compassionate. And so the work kind of really syncs up with that scripture by Dogen.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, one thing that really has stuck with me was from the second morning walk that we did yesterday. And for those of you who did not do the retreat, we were given the instruction to go walk around and see everything as if we had just seen it for the first time, and then to name it as if we were God. And then there were some other instructions, but that was the basic thing. And I just had the impression walking around, particularly looking at plants, that everything just looked so happy to exist. Like the way the trees just were there. It was very clear to me, like it's like everything just loves existing like this. And yeah, it just kind of, there was something very simple about it. And then I was just looking at leaves and the ground, and yeah, it just was this very, it was kind of funny. I was like, oh yeah. I think maybe it seems like things just love existing on some level. And they're expressing that just by being exactly what they are. So that was a really, like, yeah, I think I hope to continue to see things that way, and I'm open to seeing things some other way. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that nature is a part of you that is not suffering in that moment. You get to see your non-suffering. You were seeing yourself there. That's what I'm trying to say. How lovely. You know, like the 10,000 things that Dogen talks about? Look around. This is the 10,000 things. Look at the humans in the room and their little smiles. Slightly unkempt hair. Mine included, of course. And thank you for looking. Don't miss it. It's lovely. And outside of this retreat, it's a human race. Inside of this retreat, it's a human race. You know? Yes.
You mentioned the word suffering, and I'd like for you to talk about it from the perspective of Byron Katie and also from the perspective of Zen, and how they parallel, and if there are different ways of looking at it.
So to keep it very simple, I notice that when I believe my thoughts, I suffer. And when I don't, I suffer less, or I don't even suffer at all. And then I've noticed that that's true over and over and over in any direction I've tried it. You know, so I don't believe it's going to be like that the next time. But you start developing a confidence in the practice, right? But as you practice and you see that it kind of works. And so for me, suffering is what happens when I believe a thought. And so we really identify with thought, and that's kind of like the basic craving, you know. And like I say, I want fame and fortune, and we might call those cravings, but that's a thought. I mean, are you sure? Have you seen the people that have that stuff? Does that sound like a good idea to you? See, this is inquiry. You know, it's just ordinary language. But so work with the thoughts. You know, if you have a craving, I want them to name me the CEO. You know, to give me the brown robe, to pass the torch, to declare the IPO, whatever it is. Notice how it's a thought. And when I believe that thought and I don't have that, I suffer. You know, it's like the liberation from all obstruction chant that we chant is so powerful, because like the way to live that does not get to that is, well, I want what I have. And then that's simpler, you know, it's done. Yeah, thank you.
Just since I have the black robe on, I'll just verify what he said. That in Zen, it's very much parallels in Zen. There's just a different practice. This is a certain method that gets at something that Zen also is pointing to, which is that concepts are empty. That they're insubstantial in some way. They're incomplete. And so when we practice Zazen, we're practicing presence with what's happening. And the suffering that we feel is, or one of the aspects of the suffering is the separation from this. The judgments create an illusion of separateness. And so we, through our practice of complete and pure presence of this particular moment in its great array that's just completely ordinary, then we're not operating from the illusion of separateness. So in that way, it's the same, but sort of like just a different way at it, and they complement each other. Yeah.
And at the same time, completely indistinguishable from each other. Like for me, the lived experience of Zazen is completely 100% indistinguishable from the lived experience of just sitting.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much. This retreat's been incredible. I'll remember this weekend for the rest of my life. Since this morning, when it ended and Vow of Silence ended, I kind of instantly felt all these thoughts coming in my head of, oh, I should talk to this person, I should explain myself more, or I want to hear more about this, or I can't wait to get home and tell my partner to do the work, I should send the book to this person, and just like this kind of floodgate of thoughts. And so quickly I was taken away from the peace that this retreat has brought. And I've kind of had one of my turnarounds from yesterday. It's been ringing in my head, and during the meditation for this past hour, I've thought of it again, and my initial concept was being frustrated with my mom for pushing her beliefs. And so the turnaround was, I need to stop pushing my beliefs on others, and even more importantly, I need to stop pushing my beliefs on myself. And that is possibly the most radical thing I have learned. And so I'm going to write down my turnaround and keep it on my altar, and anytime I feel my thoughts needing validation, what a beautiful reminder. I do not need to push my belief on anyone, especially not myself. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah. Thank you all for sharing your experience. And thank you, Eduardo, for coming. We're glad that you continue to return to Great Vow and offer the work. Somebody who's been practicing it for so long, and we look forward to continuing to do the work here and work with you. So with that, let's close with 4 vows.